Hey there, and welcome to The Hash. I am Zach Seward, and I am here on this TV show about to talk about some stuff. I'm joined by the lovely and wonderful Will Foxley, Jen Sanasi, and Naomi Brockwell. We're going to get this thing going today. Jen, we're talking about some name changes in the tech world. What do you got for us?
Yeah, more name changes. It's like the year of the name change. So Square is changing its name to Block effective December 10th. Now, of course, this comes after CEO Jack Dorsey stepped down from his role as CEO of Twitter. And as Square expands to focus on blockchain, in an announcement, the company said the new name acknowledges the company's growth and creates room for future growth. So, Zach, I have a question. Can a company not grow without changing the name? Why? Why does Facebook need to change its name? Okay, fact check me.
What do we fact
check?
You
said blockchain? They're not growing into blockchain. It's Bitcoin. It's Bitcoin.
Well, the article said they're exploring blockchain technology, and they did acquire Tidal, so they are going into blockchain.
Who votes Will of the Island?
I liked it. Will just did a very good. He channeled every Twitter commenter. Like when you try to use the word Bitcoin and crypto interchangeably,
you mention the word crypto. It's Bitcoin.
Bitcoin. And you're like, no, I'm just trying to not use the same word twice in the same sentence.
And they're like, no, trying to tell the people the information.
That was cool. All right. Anyway, back to business here. All right. I think it's about shortened attention spans in the internet age. I think people just are they just need excitingness. So companies are like, sure, we'll change our name. It'll get people talking for 5 minutes and we'll be the same company, but people will speculate that we're a different company. And plus we have a new name. So that's what I think it's about. People are addicted to immediacy and stimulation. And I think companies are kind of tuned into that. And I bet we're going to see more name changes because of it, right? These are companies that have been around for a decade plus at this point. They're like, you know what? It's time to shake things up. We'll get people talking. Let's just change our name. So yeah, I'm putting it on shortened attention spans. But I'll toss it up to Naomi.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at what happened to Long Island Iced Tea when they added the word block into their name, their stock price pumped. So yeah, I think people are dumb, and I think people just look at the names of things. I'm sorry, I'm going to say it, and they're like, yeah, it's a blockchain thing, and so that's could be a scenario. But I actually think it's kind of a clever name change because you go from Square, this two-dimensional shape, and then they literally just added a third dimension to their company. I don't know. I think that's kind of
Do you think they were that clever in the marketing meeting?
Do
you think they were there and they were like, clever. We're going to be? Yeah, maybe. They're also changing Square Crypto to Spiral. So if you want to take a stab at the cleverness behind that,
suggests going down, right? I don't understand what imagery they're playing with there. Like a downward spiral. I don't know, but is Circle going to change their name to Sphere next? That'd be interesting.
I really hope so.
SEC heat, then they just pivot. We're Sphere. We're adding a third dimension to our products line. But Will, I'm going to throw this to you.
My favorite part was either the video or the new About Us page for Square, where all their faces were put onto squares. You see Jack Dorsey's face just kind of melded into a giant square. It was pretty great. I'd encourage everyone to go check it out. And here's the video. It looks pretty slick. Look at that, just bouncing around. That's all I have for you guys. I'm sorry.
Will, I got a fact check you on that. Their faces are on blocks. They're not on squares. They're on three-dimensional cubes.
Wait, okay.
Little cubes, all right. Get the memo, right? We're 2D.
They're on the cubes.
3D. It's hot. 3D is hot.
Cubes are hot in
2022.
Yeah,
this is better than Meta. I will say that.
This is
far better than Meta.
But I'm just over the crypto companies having block in their name. We get it.
Maybe. I mean, it is interesting because they are focusing more in that direction. So it's like a clever name. But it's also interesting that Dorsey, gets ousted from Twitter or he resigns or however we want to phrase it. And now he's just kind of going all in onto Square and saying we're doing a big revamp and we're going this other direction. He's kind of doubling down now. So that's interesting. We don't know the backstory behind the scenes of what happened at Twitter, whether it was board pressure, whether it was investor pressure. There was word that there were investors who got added as 2 extra seats to the Twitter board who said we need to go in this other direction. So perhaps there was pressure to say Jack Dorsey isn't the one who's going to cut it there. So he resigned, but it's unclear where that resignation was pressured from, whether it came internally from Jack, where he wanted to focus on this other thing, or whether the pressure was external. But regardless, he is doubling down on Block. Now, I was about to say Cube. Now that's going to be confusing.
Cube is pretty good too.
Yeah, on Block.
That's
So I'm excited to see what happens there. I am sad though. Like there have been some great articles about Jack leaving Twitter and about how we kind of didn't appreciate all the effort he made in on the front of free speech while he was there. I certainly didn't. Like we got a hint of it. I really like the Blue Frontier decentralized Twitter project. That seems to just be in the trash heap now. I have no idea what's going to happen with that, but with Jack at the helm, I don't see them putting effort towards that, especially when the word from the shareholders was, no, we need to be doubling down on sales and revenue, and that needs to be our focus. So Jack was like, no, we need to focus on freedom of speech, and then everyone else was like, no, let's make money with user data. So very, very divergent goals there, but let's change track here and go to the next story. I think that we have Zach.
We do indeed. Let's do it. Let's go to Brazil, where Mercado Libre, which is a really big e-commerce company, this was known last week, but they shared a bit more details on how this crypto buying and selling service was going to be operated, and it's very similar to how PayPal rolled out its crypto buying and selling service at the end of last year. They have tapped Paxos, which is a sort of a back-end custodian and trading provider, I guess you could say, to sort of operate behind the scenes for this new service that they're rolling out to something like 200 million Brazilian customers. So I think it's really interesting to see this. It kind of got me remembering the PayPal story and how big that was last year and how catalytic that was for a lot of the conversations around Bitcoin within the mainstream. So I wanted to sort of revisit that and kind of look at where we are here at the end of 2021 as another big giant that is in the traditional web space is adding crypto functionality for its customers in a similar tie-up with a key backend provider in the industry. So I'm going to toss this to Will. What are your thoughts on like you could imagine a world where like every e-commerce company could do this, right? And there are service providers out there who can make it happen and make it easy for their user bases. So I'm just curious as to your thoughts on this activation in Brazil for Mercado Libre.
Totally. I think these things, like, they start small and then they get really big. Like you're saying with the PayPal story, there was like inklings and little pieces here and there for other commerce companies, and then they get bigger, they hit the main stage. And this is a huge integration. I mean, I don't know much about the Brazilian e-commerce market. That's pretty niche industry, but if you look at the numbers alone, I think it's like 200 million or something like that people have the ability to be involved with this. Might need to fact check me there. But I think it also speaks to how some of these stablecoin providers can kind of play catch up by tapping into markets that other people aren't involved in. If you get involved with an e-commerce platform that's already dominating an industry, you have some sort of integration, you can jumpstart the stablecoin line and get more involved. Paxos is definitely like a smaller stablecoin compared to like USDC or Tether. And an integration like this allows them to be put back into the forefront of the conversation of who's going to win the private stablecoin battle out there. So I'd expect to see more of these things as they go along. There's a lot of e-commerce platforms around the globe that still have to be tapped. There's a lot of these countries that still haven't had a lot of crypto adoption as much as the US or Western Europe in terms of developers or in terms of conversation talk points. And I think like this is a really key way for the cryptocurrency kind of enter those markets. I am curious to hear Naomi's thoughts on this subject.
Yeah, it's interesting to see Brazil go in this direction where other countries are, just really clamping down on regulation that would make this stuff illegal. I know at the start of the month we had India say that, well, we're actually going to, well, it is the start of the month. I think there have been lots of pieces out recently about India kind of banning cryptocurrencies. They have this new law in effect. It's a regulation of official currency bill. It hasn't yet been voted in, but the idea is that it's going to make all private sector cryptocurrencies illegal for people in India to participate in. And so while some governments are like clamping down on the crypto space and creating laws like this so that they can make way for a central bank digital currency, Brazil hasn't gone that route yet. And so now we've got all these interesting partnerships. Like, it's nice to see what interesting things can arrive when governments don't stop this blossoming of innovation and this experimentation. So I really like that they're exploring this and companies there are free to create these partnerships and try to make it easier for individuals to get access to this new era of digital assets. I think that's pretty cool. I wish more countries would follow suit and kind of let this stuff blossom and let consumers get access to the things that they clearly want access to, because the world of cryptocurrency is just such a booming industry. Clearly, this is something that consumers are interested in, but governments want to come in and protect us from our own decisions. So I'm glad Brazil hasn't gone that route. But Jen, I'm going to throw to you for your thoughts.
I was actually surprised at how much consumer demand there is in Brazil for Bitcoin. So I think at the end of last month, there was a report that 99Pay, which is a Brazilian ride-hailing service owned by Didi, the Chinese ride-hailing service, integrated Bitcoin trading on their platform, which I thought was interesting. And they cited their own research that they did internally that just said there's a lot of consumer demand for this. So we're gonna put the capability on the platform. I found some research this morning from the Brazilian Central Bank. They said in October that Brazilians have acquired 4.27 billion in cryptocurrencies so far in 2021. So I thought that was super interesting. I wasn't expecting to see that.
Not a number to be sneezed at, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big
Shout
number.
out
It's
to
interesting.
Shout out to former CoinDesk reporter Aaron Stanley, who writes a nice Substack about Brazil and crypto. You should be sure to check it out. I think there's a lot more going on there than people know about. So that's a really great resource to kind of tap into. I'll throw it back to you, Zach.
No, I'm always game for a shout out to Aaron Stanley. Shout out to Aaron Stanley. Go subscribe to the Substack.
Shout out.
We'll find the link. Shout out. We'll find the link. We'll find the name. We'll make it happen. All right, we're taking a break. We're gonna go find that. We're gonna go find that Substack account, and when we get back, we're gonna
during the break,
Aaron Stanley's newsletter some more. But when we get on, after we do that, we're gonna talk about Badger DAO, which got super wrecked last night with what appears to be a $120 million DeFi exploit. Should rank it up there with some of the largest in DeFi history. We'll talk about that after the break. Stick with us. It's the hash. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Christine Lee.
Zach Seward.
I'm Michael Casey.
I'm Christy Harkin.
I'm Isaiah Jackson.
I'm Serena Lynn.
Hey, this is Will Foxley.
I'm Teresa Santos.
Hi, I'm Lawrence Lewitton.
Hi, I'm Dorian Wayne.
I'm Nicolas Day.
Hi, I'm Kevin Worth.
My name is Naomi Brockwell.
I'm Jordan Muthra.
Hi, I'm Galen Moore.
Hi, I'm Brad Count.
I'm Pete Paschal.
Hi, I'm Jen Sanasi. You're watching.
And you are watching.
And you're watching CoinDesk TV.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Naomi Brockwell. This is Jen Sanasi. This is Will Foxley. This is Zach Seward. In case you didn't get our names from that nice little trailer that was before. We're going to go to the realm of the Fed and a battle that seems to be brewing, and it is being led by our hero, Senator Lummis. So Lummis wrote this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal where she said that basically what the Federal Reserve is doing right now is illegal in terms of playing this very political game when it comes to cryptocurrency access in relation to the traditional banking infrastructure. So some things that she mentioned, she says the Fed is violating the law by delaying the applications for the special purpose depository institutions that were set up in Wyoming to have a Fed master account. So there have been several of these approved, Avanti, Kraken. They both have special purpose depository institutes. These are 100% reserve institutes that are able to do all kinds of wonderful things in the crypto space, custody assets, like all kinds of things. And by all definitions in our legal books in America, they are considered banks. And so by this standard, they should be given a Fed master account. This basically gives them keys to the financial infrastructure in the United States. And apparently both of these institutions applied for a Fed master account over a year ago. And they applied at the Federal Reserve Bank of Kansas City. Apparently, over a year later, the Fed hasn't started processing these applications. This is actually a violation of the law. In 1994, Congress required the Fed to act on all applications within 1 year. Also, numerous federal courts have stated the Fed has a duty to give payment system access to all banks and credit unions conducting legal activities. The Fed itself has said that its payment services will be available to all depository institutes on an equitable basis in an atmosphere of competitive fairness. So Lummis is calling out the Fed in a very loud and vocal way, saying the Fed is not playing fairly. This has become a political issue. The fact that they are denying these crypto institutes access to these financial rails is a very political statement and is not fair at all. They're basically cutting out an entire industry from having access. So he's calling them out, and he's also calling out Powell and Brainard as the new nominees for Fed chair and vice chair. They have already been nominated, but she's saying, listen, we should block this nomination. These are people who have not acted on this. They're creating a very politically charged atmosphere that is to the detriment of the cryptocurrency space. And she's pretty angry about this. I think hat off to her. I think this is wonderful that she's calling this out, because absolutely, by everything we see, like according to that 1994 law that was passed, the Fed needed to have acted. They didn't. So, I mean, it's very interesting that she's the only one who is calling this out. I'm going to throw this to the group for your thoughts. Will, what's your take on all of this? Is there a battle brewing with the Fed versus all of the other people in office?
This isn't surprising to me. It's a government body, right? They're slowing everything. It takes me 3 trips to DMV to get a new license plate. So to get something like this rolled through, it's just going to take forever. I think on like the cryptocurrency level in Washington, D.C., I think we're only seeing the beginning of that battle. We saw, I think 2 weeks ago, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton talking about how Bitcoin could be an opponent to the dollar reserve system. We've seen Jerome Powell talk about it, speaking before Congress. We've seen Gary Gensler, head of the SEC, also talking about it recently. A lot of these government powers are looking at crypto, they're looking at Bitcoin, and they're saying this is going to be an issue. And I don't see why that wouldn't extend to the banking level. If you have a institution that's purpose-built to hold custody and sell crypto, like these deposit institutions from Kraken, Avanti, and elsewhere, they're going to be politicized. They're going to be looked at with a scant eye and say, hey, do we really want this? And I think one way they can slow it down is just by not pushing the paperwork forward. I'm interested to see how this is kind of responded to. An op-ed from a senator in the Wall Street Journal. Most people are reading that, and there's going to be some pressure put on some people in the Biden administration to kind of get the ball rolling. I'm interested to see if there is any like legal action, or if there is any pressing from anyone in the Biden administration to get this going, or if they're just going to keep ignoring it. Zach, I'll throw it up to you.
I'm going to toss straight to Naomi. I mean, she's ready. Naomi, go.
She is ready. I will say that when Hillary Clinton mentioned that the US dollar might be put in danger because of cryptocurrency, that it might, destabilize sovereign fiat, I was like, that was the weirdest endorsement of Bitcoin I've ever heard, but okay.
Totally.
Great. Thank you for
the endorsement. For acknowledging it.
Like one thing I will say, and then I'll toss to you, Jen, is that this battle, it really does seem to be brewing between states that have deliberately pursued progressive policies when it comes to cryptocurrency, and really great laws that are inviting to businesses and helpful for job creation, and unelected bureaucrats like those at the Fed, these people who are put into office, and we actually don't get a direct say in any of this. So like states like Wyoming have put into place such great laws, and the Fed is just like not acting on the way that they should. These special purpose depository institutes of Wyoming should be given access to the Fed. They should be given Fed master accounts. And so it is this very interesting battle that is brewing between these good laws for states for crypto and the Federal Reserve. We'll see which direction it goes. But Jen, I'll throw it to you.
Yeah, an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal just feels almost like a last resort. It feels like she's come up against all these other roadblocks, hasn't been able to get any answers, and now she's like, okay, well, I need to publish this op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and hopefully some results can come from it. I want to read just a little section from the end of the op-ed. She said, I believe both are smart and qualified, but while Mr. Powell and Ms. Brainard have said they want to promote responsible financial innovation, when Wyoming provided a perfect opportunity, the Fed instead inexplicably chose to ignore its legitimate obligations. I want to know why I haven't received an answer. That sounds like a frustrated person. And I just don't know that an op-ed is going to get any answers. I mean, it's been so long. We've seen that when intelligent questions are asked about things that are written in law, we often don't get answers. We just get people who are talking around the answers. And so it is frustrating, and it was frustrating to read this. But Naomi, I'll pass it back to you.
I really like that the Fed has been put under such scrutiny in this crypto era, because you had the Ron Paul era where he's like, and the Fed, at least audit the Fed. Let's get some sort of transparency in this opaque institution called the Fed. And it was like, it got a lot of steam. I don't want to undercut that. But that was from people who really believed in Ron Paul's message. Now we have like all of the crypto space, which is a kind of nonpartisan world, saying, actually, let's scrutinize the Fed. What are they doing? Why are they blocking this access? What's happening with inflation? Why are they not calling it transitory anymore? This is a little bit of a red flag. Like, it is interesting to see them put under this scrutiny, and I hope that it is a trend that will lead to more opacity in the way that they handle funds, because right now there are no audits. There's still no audit of the TARP bailouts of 2008, so we just don't know what's going on there. And I like that it's been put under the magnifying glass in a very public and vocal way. But let's change track here. And Will, giant hack.
Yeah, let's talk about a bank that should be put under some scrutiny, which is Badger DAO, which faced a $120 million exploit yesterday after the front end was hacked by an anonymous party, still unknown. A lot of the details of this hack are still coming out. It happened last night around 9 p.m. And it looks like from some of the investigation details right now that the hack was actually ongoing for a few weeks. Basically, what entailed here is a little bit different than the last DeFi exploits we're kind of familiar with. This is a front end hack where the interface that most people come to when you go to Badger DAO and you're going to deposit some tokens, maybe get some yield, take out a loan or whatnot, that part of the protocol was hacked. Nothing on the back end, none of the smart contracts were hacked, but something on the front end. This means that people who don't really know what's going on with front ends, or probably don't really understand how these systems work and had like their parameters set insecurely, had their funds drained. So we saw about 2,100 Bitcoin and about 100 Ether stolen. And right now, I'm not really sure where those funds are, but it doesn't look like they're getting them back. It doesn't look like this is a white hat hack attempt either. Zach, I'm going to throw this to you. This is, we've seen a lot of DeFi hacks over the last 2 years now, but I don't feel like I've heard of one in a few weeks or a few months.
Yeah, it has been a while. And this one is certainly sizable enough to sort of capture people's attention, even though it broke kind of overnight. I think it's going to be interesting to see if it kind of turns out into one of those pivots to white hat, like we saw with the Poly network hacker, right? Like when you try to liquidate these stolen funds into something that's usable, the community is pretty quick to identify, flag, and sort of add friction to these wallets. So it's going to be interesting to see if there is sort of an about face where it's like, oh yeah, I'm just testing the code here, just making sure that these exploits aren't exploitable. So that's still a possibility. But yeah, it has been a bit quiet on the DeFi exploit front in recent weeks. You're right, Will. So interesting to see that this one has brought us back to this conversation. And I think at its core, again, this conversation comes down to DeFi, even though it's like $100 billion sector, is still rather experimental, and there's still it's still a bit porous. So whether it's I think it was like a MetaMask exploit in this instance, or whether it's something at the protocol level, there's ways to game it in such a way that people who have the skills to do so can make off with quite large sums. So interesting to see this one. But yeah, it's going to be curious to see what happens now. That's what's next.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So there were some interesting reports on Hacker News talking about this. I like the comment from PJC50, who said that, a reminder that every DAO is a self-administering bug bounty for all the value under its control, which is an interesting way of looking at this, and it kind of does play into this. Is this a white hack? Is this a black hack? Because it could be turned into a white hack potentially by giving a portion of the funds, and then they disclose the bug. They close that up. So it's like this perpetual like honeypot that's sitting there for people to try to find the exploits, and they can either get rewarded by taking these illicit funds and trying to put them through something like Tornado Cash or some sort of like mixing program or something else, or, you know, they can report it and potentially get a reward from it. So we'll see which direction this goes in. The other thing that I'll mention that PJC50 also brought up, which I thought was a good point, is that you don't have to hack Ethereum. There are plenty of spots more vulnerable than the blockchain itself, which value can be stolen. And it is interesting because seeing all these DAOs pop up, seeing all these like treasure troves with a big target symbol on them, you know, if we're talking about this interesting game theory that is protecting the network, this interplay of technology, but also game theory, you know, a lot of people in the early days were very dismissive of Bitcoin, the idea of cryptocurrency, because they were like, no, this could easily be gamed, but the incentives just weren't there, right? And now that we have all of these DAOs built on top of this, we have these much easier exploits to target. It just is further entrenching, I think, the stability of a lot of these blockchains, because people are targeting these DAOs on top. They're not actually, you know, targeting the underlying blockchain. They're not trying to undermine the foundational rails. So I think that's a very interesting.
Yeah, totally. And I think I want to bring up one point that I've been kind of seeing all over the place, which is this idea of Web3. And I think it's become really like a buzzword over the last 6 months. Like every VC is talking like Web3, Web3, Web3. And then Bitcoin maximalists on the other side are saying like, you can't even define Web3. What is it? And I think this is a great instance of showing like where the rubber hits the road. Web3 is this idea where you put money and the internet together and you're able to do a lot of things that previously were unattainable. Take out a loan, send money to someone through your browser, stream a YouTube video while paying for it at the same time. And on the other side, like that's great stuff, but on the other side, it's still extremely insecure. And we're seeing a lot of these hacks. And I think the value of these hacks over the last 2 years, like it's been a pretty tremendous number, well into the hundreds of millions of dollars, if not into the billions of dollars. And that's nothing to wink at. And that's really catching the eye of some regulators as well. So I think it's just an interesting moment to look at some of these hacks and say, this tech is still in production, as I say, test and prod, and it's not there. But there is probably something there for the long run. Zach, I'll give it to you, though, for closing thoughts.
Yeah, DeFi is still really potentially transformative. And yeah, I think it's honestly a big part of what VCs sort of sounding the Web3 drum are really talking about, right? These financial services that are internet native that work pretty well when they're not hacked. So that's the thing that I think like is still going to be an open question. And I think it's going to absolutely inflect the regulatory conversation around how the CFTC or the SEC or others are going to view the DeFi sector through the lens of consumer protection, right? Because you see these big numbers pop up and you say, oh, someone on some mom and pop investor is on the losing end of this stick. In some future scenario. I don't think that's necessarily the case right now because probably a lot of these protocols are used by pretty savvy folks. But at some future iteration of the Web3 drum being sounded by every VC on earth, these are things that are going to be used by mom and pop investors the world over. So thinking about how to regulate that in a way that brings some degree of comfort to regulators in DC and beyond, it's going to be really interesting to watch. So yeah, we'll see what happens with the Badger DAO thing. I saw Tornado Cash just went live on Arbitrum, so now it's cheaper to wash this money potentially. So hey, maybe it's just a celebration of that. But check that out. All right. Anyway, I think that's it. Actually, we're gonna wrap the show. We're gonna wrap the hash for today. The hash is over. That was the hash. I'm Zach. We got Will. He's our mining. He's like our mining expert.
Expert on everything,
guy.
Zach.
No, yeah, there you go, for sure.
Our general expert.
We got Jen, who always has her finger on the pulse of the culture, and always is.
I think Naomi's muted.
I think she's always. Sometimes she's sad about sad stories, but oftentimes she brings insight and research to the table. Naomi's muted.
Naomi's
so
the chatty one.
Whatever I want.
Yeah,
Naomi loves
the chatty one.
She's really
with bad coin takes.
Activist, government, and consumer protection. And she
loves Bitcoin maximalists.
Stripes. and she hates. Oh no, she's back. Oh, she's back.
Oh, you shouldn't have said anything.
Here we are.
You shouldn't have said anything.
Excruciating 10 seconds of my life, guys.
That was intense. Anyway, all right. Well, that's a wrap.
Some libel over here from Zach.
We'll get our lawyers to hash this one out. My people will talk to your people. But yeah, it's good times. We'll be back again tomorrow. And hey, thanks for watching. And if you're leaving comments in the YouTube right now, thanks for doing that too. All right. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you tomorrow. Bye, Hash Fam.
Peace. Bye, Hash Fam.